It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's, I have the privilege and honor of interviewing the Maine Mariners team photographer, Connor Blake. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Brandon, and I just want to quickly say I'm appreciative of you having me on and just getting a chance to have a conversation with you about sports. I just a quick compliment about how nice your podcast title is, Brandon Sports Talk. You know, it's not you don't have to imagine what it's about. It's very descriptive. So
Thank
nice,
you.
nice work on that.
Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in working in professional sports as a team photographer?
Yeah, I think my journey to sports is probably pretty similar to a lot of people that you've interviewed in the past and that are listening, and probably you yourself. It starts out as a passion when you're young, when you're playing sports, watching sports, something that you enjoy, and then as you get older, people ask you, "What do you want to do for a job?" And it's like, well, eventually somebody tells you you can do anything, and it's like, well, can't I just do the thing that I currently really enjoy, which is playing sports? Well, it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to be a professional athlete, but if I can't play a sport for the rest of my life, maybe I can work in a sport or with a sport. And that's where my love for sort of photography came about in school. And then I eventually said, wouldn't it be great to merge those two passions together and work in sport? And so I don't think that journey is a unique one, but I think that's what makes those that work in sport, it makes us sort of a bond, because we all know that we have some sort of a passion for it, as I assume you do as well, Brandon.
Of course, what was it like going to Southern Maine and studying communications and getting to study in sports media?
Well, for those that don't know, Maine obviously is very far north. We're not southern Canada. Some people might think that. And southern Maine does not mean the very southern tip. USM is actually probably an hour of a drive in from the state's southern border, where it borders New Hampshire. And so it's located in Portland, Maine. It's the biggest metropolitan area north of Boston. And so for me, having grown up in Maine, a very rural community, nothing too huge. Portland was big, and so getting to go to a school that was based in Portland, Maine, was kind of like going to school to Boston for me, anyways. Just like perspective wise. So just to set the scene for a minute, that's where the state's media hub was. That's where all of our minor league sports teams were. That's where business was getting done. And so for me, I wanted to go to a school that I felt like was in the mix. And USM was that for me. It was an in-state school. It was relatively affordable. And I found that I was able to be a relatively big fish in a small pond. Wasn't a very large school as far as students there. And that allowed me, I think, to get a better education. I got more one-on-one time with my professors, and just got more chances to try things. And so their department, my 4 years there, really allowed me to develop a theoretical background as well as the practical skills that I use today. And I'm glad I went there. I wouldn't do it a different way if I had the choice. It was a good experience.
Of course, as you just got done saying, what was that experience like getting to study in the hub of sports in professional in Maine?
Well, it's an incredible area for growth for Portland. We have the Portland Sea Dogs, which is the AA affiliate of the Red Sox. We have the Maine Celtics, formerly known as the Maine Red Claws, which is the G League affiliate of the Boston Celtics. And for years, we've had minor league hockey. At times, it's been an AHL affiliate, the Portland Pirates, and now more recently, the Maine Mariners, which is an ECHL affiliate of the Boston Bruins. And so it's this New England tie that I think that this area has for me. I grew up loving those three teams: the Bruins, the Celtics, the Red Sox, and of course the Patriots. So, you feel like you're in mini Boston. Honestly, you walk around the streets here, people are wearing their team's local colors, and these teams want to grow. They're always looking to add new fans, and the tourists that come to Maine, they're always looking to give them something new to do, something memorable. And so, I wanted to be a part of that and grow personally along with this area.
While in college at Southern Maine, what was it like getting to be the sports editor?
Yeah, so it was a very small school newspaper called the Free Press, but I think that's where you start learning is when the stakes are low. Our job was to cover things happening at the USM campus, which as at a small school, there's not a lot. And so my job was to essentially come in and run a sports section of a paper like you would see in any other paper, but just hyper focused on our school's athletics. So it was a good time. Journalism probably isn't my most favorite form of media, but I think it's something important that I learned how to ask questions, conduct interviews, and really tell a story. I think was a foundation block for me. I ended up running two series of stories while I was there. One was your basic highlight column, pick a game of the week and highlight it. Another one was called the Husky Hero of the Week. Our mascot was a Husky. So we'd pick a shining athlete that had it going on both on the field, but also in the community and really help tell that person's story. And I did that for about 2 or 3 years while I was there. And it's not something that I still do today. I don't do freelance journalism, but it's certainly something that I look back on at my time at USM, and I'm thankful for that experience.
Of course, coming out of USM, what was it like getting started into working in professional sports and working with the Maine Mariners?
Yeah, so I'll take you back for a minute. My whole journey as to why I started doing all these different things actually came from failure. I was interviewing, I was a junior in college, I think maybe a sophomore in college, and I was interviewing for an internship position at a TV station in Boston called NBC Sports Boston. And I couldn't even believe that I made it to the final round of interviews. I'm like, shouldn't have been there. Probably should have gone to a junior in college, but here I was. And I get down to the final interview room, and the guy tells me, listen, we're interviewing 6 people for a job that we only have 2 spots for. And there's nothing wrong with you. You just don't have as much experience as some of other candidates. And so I was like, well, that stinks. But the thing he told me that day was if you ever want to come back and reapply, you just do whatever you can to get the most experience possible. And I took the 2.5 hour drive back to Maine that day to really reevaluate what he said. I took it to heart and I dropped like half the things I was currently involved with and just loaded up on sports media and different opportunities. And one of these was becoming a promo team member for the Maine Mariners, working for a hockey team. And then that's what led to the Free Press and eventually sports radio, sports broadcasting, sports photography. I was like, how many different things can I do to truly round out my skill set? And if it hadn't been for that moment of rejection, I wouldn't have been as motivated to grow. And the Mariners were one of the first teams that took a chance on me. They were young. It was in their first couple seasons as a team in this market. And I figured I'd learn what it's like to throw a few T-shirts in the stands and learn what in-game operations are like for a minor league hockey team.
Of course, what were some of your roles as that promotions team manager?
Yeah, so as a member of the promo team, it's just all about fan experience, fan engagement, keeping fans um, engaged and having them feel like when they left that arena that night that they had a great time. So game night opportunities, sometimes you're folding t-shirts that will be thrown out later for a free t-shirt toss. Sometimes you're the guy. We do this thing in the middle of the game called chuck a puck where fans get these foam pucks to throw on the ice, and if they hit a target they win some money. So sometimes you're selling foam pucks. Sometimes you're the guy that gets to upgrade a family of 4 to better seats. But your job is just to ensure that the fans that are in your building that paid the $25 to get in on a Thursday night feel like they want to do that again sometime. And seeing enjoyment on a fan's face was really a fulfillment for me because I'm a people pleaser. And so if I can, enrich somebody's experience in the arena, that was something that I took pride in. And those were some of my roles as a promo team member.
Of course, what was that transition like from going from a promo team member to then working in sports radio for a local radio station?
Well, I'll say it definitely gives you a little bit more of an appreciation and you notice what happens at a local level a little bit more. I think when you're in it, you're in it. So it's easier to have some more offhand knowledge about some things. And sports radio was something that me and my friend Cullen wanted to do together. We took an intro to radio class together and we said, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we dabble with the idea of a podcast like you do now, Brandon. And but we had this local radio station that had a spot open for us. It was like, I want to say it started at 11 p.m. until 1:30 a.m. So we were working one of the graveyard shifts, and nobody's up at that time to listen to sports radio. Nobody's even awake. No one has the radio on. But we took that as an opportunity to sort of get our feet wet and to sort of get our groove. And eventually we moved up to one of the most coveted spots at the radio station, which was the Tuesday morning drive, from 9:30 to 11 in the morning. And we rocked at that. We did about 100 shows over the course of a year and a half because we had a weekly show, wasn't daily. And that was a great experience. And I think having that experience at the Maine Mariners already coming into radio allowed me to like remember like, hey, let's try to get more local sports engaged here. Let's try to tap into this local sport market and talk a little bit about those sports, as well as the bigger picture. Everyone wants to talk about the Red Sox and the Patriots, but what about the Mariners and the Sea Dogs and even USM Athletics? So that was a great experience. We even made our own custom stickers. I wish I had one here. They look ridiculous, but it was a fun time.
Of course, what was that like getting to become the sports broadcaster at your alma mater of Southern Maine?
Well, it was something that just kind of happened, honestly. I had reached out to their director of communications, Christina Krakalici, and had actually asked if I could be a sports photographer for them. And she said, hey, unfortunately, that role is filled, but we need a broadcaster. How do you feel about talking into a mic? And if at that time I had amassed about 85 shows on sports radio, so I said, I'm good at that. I'm comfortable with that, but I've never done it, right? I've talked into a mic, but I've never actually done the act of sports broadcasting, but I was willing to give it a try. And it was during COVID. And so the need for broadcasted sporting events was dire because these fans couldn't go to the games. So this was an opportunity for me to learn. And I had an incredible boss over there. She really let me have a long leash and take things and do things on my own way. We had a virtual production truck, and so I was able to really make that my own production and have my own twist on things. And she's been super supportive. I had a great broadcast partner there, Sebastian. He just completed 700 broadcasts with the school, and so I got a chance to come in and work with somebody that had been there and done it and had experience and kind of took me under their wing. And I'm getting close to my 200th sports broadcast with them now, and having it been my alma mater, I carry a certain amount of pride to be able to sort of share all the good things happening with USM Athletics with those that are watching, and I hope to continue to do it in the future.
Of course, what were some of the struggles that you faced when just first starting out of the sports broadcasting when it was in the middle of the pandemic?
Well, I think the hard thing is to know the sport. I think I grew up playing basketball and baseball and football, and like a lot of people did. But the thing about college athletics is you got sports like field hockey and lacrosse and tennis and golf and ice hockey, track and field, wrestling. I mean, you've so many different sports, which is great. But I didn't have offhand knowledge of these sports. So coming in as a student, really, and just trying to be like a sponge and soak up all these different things. And my biggest thing was if I was broadcasting field hockey, a sport I never played, I never watched until I started working as a broadcaster. I wanted somebody to come away from the broadcast thinking that guy knew what he was talking about. And that was the biggest challenge, was getting to that point where I felt somewhat fluent in analyzing the sport. I don't think I'm perfect at it. I think there are certainly people that are much better at it than I am, but that to me is the challenging part, and I have fun learning about these new sports that I didn't grow up playing.
Of course, what was your experience like getting to cover the ice hockey for the Southern Maine?
Well, Southern Maine ice hockey, It's fun, honestly, and ice hockey's a quick sport. It's fast paced. You got to be on your toes. You got to know the players, and so the other thing is hockey names can be quite difficult to pronounce. A lot of them are French Canadian, and so knowing the difference between the Pelletier, Pelletecci, or some of these other French Canadian pronunciations, to me, it was challenging, especially having not a lot of experience in it. But the thing about working at a Division III college athletics department is that you get a chance to work closely with these athletes. Nobody, or I shouldn't say nobody, but it's highly unlikely that anybody playing at Division III is going to go pro. They are playing this because they love it. They love the game. They love to compete. And so, to me, getting to go to work and see people participating at such a high level just because they love something was what pushed me to want to get better at the art of broadcasting, to learn more about their sport. Because in my opinion, is that if they were going to give a high effort, I also wanted to provide a high effort, and some really inspiring folks to work with. And nobody was going to come up to the broadcast booth and yell at me if I messed up their name or something. Just all around some great people over there at USM, and allowed me the chance to make mistakes and learn from them and grow over time.
Of course, in 2022, what was it like getting to come back to the Maine Mariners to become the team photographer?
Well, it was cool, because when I started there, I hadn't even started photography yet. It was something I had done in my senior year of college, 2020, 2021, kind of school year. And so it was a skill set that I picked up. And so my best friend, who I had started working there, 4 years ago, 5 years ago when I first started, she'd eventually worked her way up as the director of in-game operations. And one night their photographer got sick. So she called me up and said, "Hey, I know you own a camera and you know how to use it. Can you come work for us tonight?" And so I showed up and I pinch hit, came out of the bullpen and shot the game. And they ended up liking the photos a lot. And they wanted to know if I would continue to do it for the rest of that season. I did. And then this past season, I returned as sort of their main photographer, their primary shooter. We do have a couple other guys that come in and shoot with us. Mike Keeley is our boss and broadcaster, and he's a great guy to work under. And some other folks there. Mike Hopi is my second shooter there, and it's just been a great experience to be able to come back in a different role and to continue to show growth within the organization. And I'll say this, you know, it's not often you get a chance to see a team grow as much as this team has. I said earlier that Portland has always had hockey, but this is a new league, the East Coast Hockey League. It's a different league. It's a name that Mainers know, but it's a style and a brand of hockey that's different. And so reigniting and re-engaging with this market, I think, has been challenging for them. But I can say after 5 years of them being this market, the hockey bug is back in Portland, and getting to work in that environment is addicting. So,
Of course, as the Mariners team photographer, what are some of your roles and responsibility on the team photography side?
yeah, so roles and responsibilities, they change on a yearly basis with the Mariners, and we actually get a chance to sit down, and it's very open dialogue. My responsibilities are kind of strict but loose at the same time. My supervisors want 200 photos at the end of the night. That could be all 200 game photos, or maybe it's a few promotional shots or fan shots or pregame ceremonies, national, you name it. They just want around 200. And that is a high number. That is not typical as to what you might expect at like an NHL level. But you got to remember, at the NHL level, you've probably got 7 or 8 photographers in the building any given night. A couple work for the team, a couple work for the newspaper, maybe Getty Images, maybe ESPN sends somebody. At this level, the only photographers working that night are us, the team photographers. We get 2 of us. And so, the shot count should be higher, and we like to meet that demand. So that's really it. And then for me, it's just making sure that I'm where I need to be when I have to be there, and staying timely and staying on it and being ready for anything to capture any images that come my way. Um, it's funny, I did an exercise where I wanted to see how many photos I took, raw photos I took throughout the season. And I amassed somewhere over 115,000 photos over the course of about 35 home games. That's about 3,000 photos a game. So they're getting 200, but I'm taking about 3,000 to get to that number. And some people might be listening to this and say, "Wow, you're an awful photographer. Why are you taking so many pictures?" And that's fine. For me, it's like I am haunted by the shot I didn't take. And so I will always err on the caution of overshooting and knowing there wasn't a chance that I missed it versus undershooting and then wishing I had that one frame that tells the story just right.
Of course, what has your experience been like having that front row seat to the Marlins games and getting to sit right front row seeing the action?
Well, I mean, as you know, as we talked before this, Brandon, you've had some experience with sports photography. You often get some of the best seats in the house, not only with the game you're actually watching, but where I work, I get some exclusive access to the locker room, to the players, behind the scenes, warm ups. You get a chance to see the sport and the team in a way that you could never do if you just bought a ticket that night. And obviously, that's not really why we do this job of sports photography, but it is an added benefit. I won't lie and say that it's not cool. It's a very cool experience, and it's not something that I take for granted. And it's something that I hope I'll continue to be able to have going forward. But it's a very unique way to take in a sport if you can.
What is your most favorite memory that being a sports photographer for the team has been?
Yeah, my favorite memory was 2 seasons ago. So, it was the very last home game of the regular season, and the team needed a win. Not just a win in overtime, but they needed an actual win to make the playoffs, and it would have been their first time making the playoffs in franchise history, here in Portland. And I just remember they win the game and the gates open, and I usually go on the ice right after the game's done to take pictures of the team, hugging the goalie, celebrating. And this time was different because the fans knew what that win meant. We were in the playoffs, and just being on the ice with a team as they were celebrating, watches the coaches jump up and down and dance and really let themselves loose. You get a chance to know these guys and watching them celebrate, and I'm happy watching them be so happy in that moment. And that to me was the moment I'll remember, because it was the first moment I had like that. First time I experienced such joy in a moment, and just being able to capture it was even better. Being able to capture that moment and tell the story through my lens was something I'll always remember.
Of course, what is your most iconic photo that you have captured for the main team?
It's hard to pick one, and I don't think I would ever like land on one. I could look at a bunch and I'd pick a new one every day. At this point, over 200,000 photos taken since I started with them, 115,000 last year. There are a lot. There are a few that come to mind, um, but I'm gonna plead the fifth on that one because for me, sometimes it's like you've got some old ones that you really like, but it's chasing that next one that you love. That for me is the chase. Like, chasing that next photo that you're like, wow, this photo looks really great. That's my favorite photo is that next one. So
Of course, as a team photographer, what is that moment like getting to capture those like first moments in those young men's career, like the first goal scored, those first career moments, like.
well, it's special, especially at this minor league level where budgets are lower and parents and family friends aren't necessarily going to be traveling in for every minor league hockey game. So that at certain points that the only way that people are going to be able to see this moment is if you capture it. And so getting a chance to bond with some of these young players and watch them grow professionally, it's awesome. And everybody is so nice and kind and willing to open up and let you get the shot that they know you need to get. And they're super willing to let you do your work, basically. They don't get in the way. And nothing's more rewarding than getting a direct message from a player or a player's parents, even to say, hey, thank you so much for taking a picture of so and so player. Like we can't get to the games, we live too far away, and anytime you see a picture, we really appreciate it. And then when they come to the game, if they do, getting a chance to interact with them, say hi, nice to meet you. Like I'm so happy that you enjoyed the photos I take. it's fulfilling, and it's always great to capture those moments because you know that for whoever's viewing it, it's special for them.
Of course, as a team photographer for the ECHL, what is that moment like getting to see those ECHL players then go on to make it into the major NHL league?
Well, I think just like anything, as a sport fan and somebody that appreciates people's growth, you can tell right away whether some guy has a ton of potential to grow, and it's really cool to watch. And sometimes you get guys sent down for rehab assignments or whatever, and that's awesome. I remember a particular story from this past season. We started the preseason with a goalie by the name of Brandon Bussey. He was going to play for us that season, and there were some injuries at the NHL side of the Bruins. So everybody got moved up the ladder. So the AHL goalie goes up to back up the NHL goalie, and so on and so forth. And well, Brandon goes up for the weekend for the AHL team and does an absolutely great job. And they ended up saying, we're going to keep him. We'll send back our other goalie for you guys to have once everybody came back healthy. And Brandon Bussey actually ended up being the goaltender of the year for the AHL league. So think about that. A guy that was fighting for ice time on an ECHL league gets called up because of an injury and ends up being the best goalie in the entire AHL. And it's a story that you can't predict that's going to happen. And the fact that I had a chance to watch him for a few games, I mean, you knew he was special, but you didn't know how special. And so that's the kind of people and athletes and talent that you can get at the ECH level, and you never know when they're going to take off, but it's so rewarding and satisfying to watch their careers grow and watch them be successful.
Of course, as a team photographer, what has it been like obviously getting to photograph some of those players like Pat Shea, number 27?
Yeah, Pat Shea comes up a lot. His social media presence is big. He's got a good following, and I think what a lot of people don't realize is that these people are human, and despite their social media presence, they are really nice guys. Pat Shea is an absolute gentleman. He's super polite. He's very kind and respectful to work with. And I find it funny because I think his online persona is so opposite to what he's actually like in real life. And so that's the thing that's nice about being this in this role is like I was saying earlier, you get a chance to get the behind the scenes perspective that you might not get online. You get a chance to know these people personally, and they get to know you as well. And so Pat's a great guy, and he's great for the cameras, and he always takes a good photo, which I appreciate. But everybody around there is great to work with, and it's always cool to meet somebody new like that.
Of course, as a team photographer, what does those moments after those games look like as a team photographer?
Well, right after the game is kind of a mad rush. The second the final whistle blows, teams are leaving the ice. You're scrambling to get into position, get those last little shots. Sometimes you've got to do some post game photos with big groups, and then it's about hey, I've got to get as many photos off my camera as possible in the next half hour. Social media team has to get something up. Um, so the hour to hour and a half after the game, it's really just kind of a rush to get things wrapped up. And then it's really an adrenaline come down actually because you're like in the game. Like no, you're not playing, but you have a game plan that night that you have to execute. You've got to get it done. And so that drive home, I'll throw on some music or something, and actually just try to unwind a little bit because you feel, depending on how the game went, you feel this sense of adrenaline from having sort of been going all night, and it can feel exhausting at times because of that, but the next time you go back to the arena, you're ready to go.
Of course, for you, what is that moment like in intermission, editing your photos, and then after the game, going back home and re-editing those photos and looking at your great shots and your horrible shots?
Yeah, I'm sure you know Brandon as somebody who's worked in this industry before. The intermission time is crucial, and because they've got a social team has to get something up for the intermission graphic. The score is 1-0, and they need to find the perfect picture of the celebration or the goalie or a big hit or something. And so we've really worked on being more efficient at this. Our cameras allow us to rate our photos in camera as the game is going. And so I'll have 16 minutes between periods by the time I get back to my computer. So I've got 16 minutes to at least upload 20 photos from that period that are all edited and are the right ones. And so, as I stated earlier, taking 3,000 photos is a lot. So honestly, the biggest share of time is importing. If I take 1,000 photos in a period, I've got to get 1,000 photos in, find the 20 that I starred as 5 stars. I don't really have time to edit too deeply, so I'll slap a preset on them as they import that has the editing settings that I like for that arena with that lighting. And then I'm just trusting in my capabilities as a photographer that it's going to look good, because honestly, I don't have time to really analyze each photo individually. So me and my counterpart, Mike Hopi, my second shooter, we're both doing the same thing. So hopefully with 4 minutes left in the intermission, they have 40 photos between us at least to take a look at, and then they throw it on social. And you do that 2 times throughout the night, because you've got the first intermission, second intermission. And then at the end of the night, you've got more time to actually go through and, get the pregame ceremony photos that you didn't have time to go through. And that's some of my favorite time, because you get a chance to actually dig into these photos and pull some really cool images out in the post processing of them.
Of course, as a team photographer, what is it like getting to see your photos actually appear on the social media, whether it's the team social media or even players' social media after they request photos from you?
It's a cool moment. It'll never stop being cool, and I never want to stop appreciating it. Uh, it's surreal every time, and it's not. And for me, it reminds me of how hard and how long I've had to work to get to this point. I'm not going to pretend that I started and I was a natural. I still don't think I'm perfect. I think I've got a long way to grow still. So I get very proud and honored that I'm in a situation to where I'm even taking pictures that people want to post online, let alone a team that I work for. The thing I love seeing the most for two things this past season, they made these little player cards this past year, player trading cards, not a lot, but knowing that, hey, I took that picture that's on that card, like that was pretty cool to actually have a physical trading card of a player, and it's like I took that. And then at the end of the season, they gave out these little posters of the team photo, the 2023 Maine Mariners team photo, and that was cool to see that on a big poster like that. To know people are going to take that poster and hang it up on their wall, or put it in their office cubicle or something, and to know that I took that was really a cool moment. It's surreal, and it's never really about that for me. Like seeing my photos, it's not about that, but it is a cool feeling to know that somebody appreciated my work enough to want to make things like that. And so when I see them, it's a really cool experience that I hope doesn't end.
Of course, as you talked about the trading cards, what is that like getting to take photos, like the in-game action photos, versus taking like your regular photos in your jersey for a trading card?
Yeah, well, in-game photos are difficult. At our arena, we don't have the blessing of having photo holes like you might see at NHL arenas, where they literally cut a hole in the glass for the photographer's lens to fit through. So we have to get really creative. We actually have like certain areas of the arena that we call good glass and bad glass, depending on how many smudges it has on it. And so we're always trying to find different ways to photograph an arena that doesn't look like you're shooting through a Vaseline tube, because that's what dirty glass can look like. It's like your lens is covered in Vaseline. And so that's a creative process. But over the course of now, I've done 45, 50 home games. You end up finding these spots that you're like, I know no matter what, I'm going to get a good shot from here. And so that's always fun. And I'm not going to pretend I'm some like precise shooter. I don't think anybody can show up to an arena and manually shoot this stuff or single shoot this stuff. I set my shutter speed at the highest it'll go, and I spray and I pray. I make sure that my focus is set, that it's framed right, and then I just hold that button down, follow the action, and then after it's done, I go through and I pray to God that I got that one frame that I'm looking for. And that's a process that I'm working on trying to trim down, because I think that definitely adds to my photo count. But again, I'm haunted by the shot I didn't get, and so that's what it's like to shoot in-game action. It's really fast if you haven't done it before. And so getting to a point where you can anticipate that action has helped a lot, as I'm sure you can relate, Brandon, with your experience as well.
Of course, what are some of the things that you've learned that you didn't know before working for a professional sports team as a team photographer?
Uh, I didn't know how many people do so many different jobs. At this level, at the minor league sports level, people are wearing multiple hats all the time. Our broadcaster is also the guy in charge of media relations and setting up post-game interviews. Our marketer is also in charge of in-game operations. Our media assistant also is in charge of making sure our off-ice officials are fed before the game starts. Like, so many people are doing so many different things. And I don't think people realize that we don't have this endless army of people that are helping. You've just got a small core, a good team, all full of individuals that want to see this game and the season be successful. And we've started to see that. The team actually sold out 2 of their games last year, or maybe 3 of their games last year, or they were close. And it's really awesome to see all those efforts combined. But I don't think people realize when you go to a game, I want you to try to find the amount of people that actually are putting this production on. My guess is it's probably about half as many as you would think it would be.
What advice would you give those people that are looking to become team photographers for a professional sports team?
I would say just start. Start with your iPhone. Start with whatever camera you have. Start getting to the mind of a sports photographer. Start thinking about where's the action going to be. People don't realize that if you own a $1,300 iPhone, you've got a $1,300 camera in your pocket that can shoot relatively well. No, it's not going to shoot as high frame rates, but it can start framing things up for you and start getting you to the mindset of how you might frame up a shot. Then I would say, see if you can't just do it for free. If nobody will hire you, or if you don't feel comfortable doing it, say, hey, I've bought a nice camera, or I think I have a nice camera, and I'd love to come take photos for you for free. And or maybe see if somebody will throw you a couple bucks for it. Go work for your local college, or go out to a rec league or a high school to see if they could use free photos, and see if you can't learn. The thing that I always found difficult when I started was that I was afraid that if somebody paid me money when I was learning, they would get upset at bad photos because I'm like, I don't know if I'm good yet. I need to learn. And so I wouldn't charge them money because to me, the experience getting to learn under a situation that I'm not being paid in was perfect. It allowed me to mess up without feeling horrible. Imagine if somebody paid you $200 to get something right and then you like didn't have anything in focus. I mean, that'd be embarrassing. And so I'd say start. I don't think, I think Brandon, you can relate probably. I don't think photography is an industry that needs to be gatekept from people. I think more people should be getting into it. I don't think you need to have the nicest equipment ever to get into it. Just start and see where that takes you. And if it's something you love, something you enjoy, you'll find over time you'll find yourself investing in better equipment, and eventually you won't stop. I keep buying new equipment every month, and I just can't stop. So that's my advice, and just get into it.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the Maine Mariners team at?
Yeah, so they can find me. My Instagram is Connor Blake Photography. Maybe it's Connor.Blake Photography or something like that. That's what my Instagram is. I do several different things with it, whether it's sports or weddings or whatever. I'm kind of a jack of all trades, but that's where most of my social stuff is. Or they can find me on LinkedIn, Connor Blake MBA. Now I just got my MBA a couple of weeks ago, so I'd love to connect with people if somebody has any questions or wants some advice or input. I'm happy to do that. And yeah, that's where you can find me. And then the Maine Mariners, man, they're out there. So you just look up the Maine Mariners online and head on over to their team website. And if you're ever in Maine, it's a beautiful place. You got to come see a game.
Thank you again, Connor Blake, for your interview, and best of luck in your future as the team photographer for the Maine Mariners.
Thanks, Brandon.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Connor Blake, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.